with responsibility for those programs. We want to get more information on it to find out when the L.I.F.T will be officially launched, what are some of the details of the L.I.F.T, and generally information that people should be aware of.
Sure. No problem. So, so as would have been a campaign promise of the St. Nevis Labour Party was one that we would be restructuring the poverty alleviation program in the way that it was initially implemented. And so, since the Labour administration took office in August 2022, you would know that, within that year, towards the end of that year, we would have signaled stat in terms of the restructuring of the P.A.P.
Okay.
And that would have started with the asking people to re-register, because at the time we would not have really, because of how the P.A.P was originally implemented, we just did not have a sense of like who's on it, if the people on it are actually really needing it, and that kind of sense. So we would have launched a reapplication process where we invited persons who are on it or who are not to kind of reapply and go back through the process. So we would have started the restructuring at that time. Over the course of 2023, we would have piloted a few different approaches to the P.A.P. So we would have been stricter in terms of our adherence to the original eligibility criterion, which was, a $3,000 earning and $500 per household in terms of the benefits. So we would have been strict with that in social development, and so we would have gone through that process, and throughout the year we would have been paying close monitoring and evaluation to see how the program was going. There are a number of issues that came about through that, and it's based on those things that we were able to more thoughtfully design and develop the L.I.F.T program as an evolution to the original poverty alleviation program. And so that is where we are at this point in time now in 2024. We're kind of ready to move the transition over to L.I.F.T, where we have, some significant changes in the approach to cash transfer assistance, which is essentially what the poverty alleviation program is. I know we have a lot of questions around there, but what is L.I.F.T? So, just to, remove any mystery. So, L.I.F.T actually stands for Livelihood Improvement for Family Transformation. And so the L.I.F.T program is intended to be an evolution of what the poverty alleviation program was intended, I believe, to maybe do. It is a cash transfer assistance program where we will be, providing a social assistance cash benefit to persons who are successful in terms of applying. So that will continue. So social services, since the program was transferred from sustainable development to social development, the nature of the assistance will continue. Persons will still be able to receive some cash transfer assistance, but the parameters around that will just look a little bit different, especially since we are really seeking to actually achieve some level of poverty reduction and empowerment of people through the program, which is something that the P.A.P actually lacked. It wasn't revolutionary at all in that way.
And what does the restructuring or transitioning process entail? What is happening now as it relates to P.A.P to L.I.F.T?
So at this time, we, like I would have said, we would have been paying close monitoring and evaluation to see what different issues were. Right now, we would have, over in 2023, we would have sought and received some technical assistance from UNICEF. They would have done some consultations with our staff, some evaluations of what we were doing, and they would have developed some standard operating procedures for us to assist us with the implementation of a differently designed and a more evolved version of the program. We are right now continuing to be in conversations. We are trying to prepare ourselves in the ministry and in the Department of Social Services in terms of the things that need to go in place in order for us to actually implement L.I.F.T. And of course, we do need to do a lot more in terms of communicating and kind of preparing the public and those who are on it so that they know, okay, so these are the changes that are coming, what to expect. And so we're trying to kind of get on board in terms of communicating those changes, preparing the staff to actually manage the shift, and all the new work, the added work that will be involved in terms of delivering this type of social assistance through the L.I.F.T.
What are some of the findings of your ministry's evaluation that led to the transition process?
Sure. So a number of findings that we would have found. So, over the past year, in the last cycle of the P.A.P approach and the P.A.P experience, we would have found that, initially, the P.A.P wasn't implemented with any real systematic way. It was a bit unfair in terms of the process. You never really knew who was on it. You didn't really know, there was no clear process or procedure or system to kind of get on. And so what we found was that there were some people, we found that there were people who were really in need of the assistance who weren't getting it, and that there were people who were receiving the assistance who didn't really have a significant vulnerability. So it was really unfair in that way, and there was no transparency around how you got on, why you got on, and how you could access the benefit, which, like I said, persons who really needed it just weren't able to receive it, and those who were, we were able to identify that there are some people who, were taking advantage. So that was a significant finding. We also found, especially since, we were really trying to be as strict as possible and beholden to, making sure we can manage the resources, and we really tried to stick to the $500 benefit per household.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we actually found that came out was that across the Federation, we actually have multiple family units living within one household. And so that became a challenge where we would find people would apply, and be eligible because, they're earning less than the original stated amount, which is less than $3,000 per month. But they share a same address, or they share the same living quarters with, say, another family unit. So, for example, me and you, we're brother and sister. We're living in our mother's house together. You have your child, I have my child.
Right.
It is a $500 per household benefit. It's either you or it's either me that's going to get assistance. And so we found that was one of the challenges. So, because, it's like if you already got it, unfortunately, we can't put another $500 into that household. And that was just a matter of us trying to, manage the resources that we had and sticking to these policies. So we found, that's just one of the trends we see, that there are multiple families living in single households. We would have also recognized that through the P.A.P experience, it actually wasn't the way that program was implemented and administered. It really wasn't actually helping with lifting people out of poverty. There were no opportunities for empowerment. There was no case management. There was no monitoring and evaluation. They were just kind of handouts. And so when you have a program that is actually supposed to and designed and intended to actually improve people's lives in terms of shifting their trajectory in terms of poverty reduction, if there's nothing to actually help move people into improving their lives, if there's no additional support systems, if there's no support through case management, you're just going to continue giving people the money and they will not be necessarily improved in terms of self-development. So that was a major aspect that we figured, that people were just receiving the money. We have no idea how it's being utilized. We don't know if it's actually improving livelihoods in the way that we would like to see to ultimately reduce poverty. So those are three significant things that we would have identified.
You made mention in your findings that you had a situation where there were people who were in need of the assistance, but they were not identified on the P.A.P program, versus those who were not necessarily in need of the assistance, but they were on the P.A.P program. How does this new program L.I.F.T intend to reach the most vulnerable?
That's a good question. So, recognizing, the challenges in terms of wanting to be able to target the most vulnerable, L.I.F.T is streamlining a little bit more. So one of the ways we're doing it to target those who are most vulnerable, the threshold for eligibility is reducing. So as opposed to $3,000 being the threshold, it's now going to be $2,500 per month of annual income. So that is the eligibility criteria now. So it's persons or families who earn less than $2,500 gross income monthly, and that is intended for us to target more persons who are more vulnerable. So we're trying to target those more people who earn less. So that's one significant change that people can expect with L.I.F.T. So it's now, the threshold has now moved to $2,500 per month of gross income. Also, we would have piloted it in the last cycle of the P.A.P approach. last year, where we would have, part of the restructuring, we would have identified priority categories of the most vulnerable. Under the P.A.P experience, we would have identified 4 groups. For L.I.F.T, we are still going to identify vulnerable groups, but we're changing them a little, but we are targeting those who are unemployed. Okay. Especially those who have children, in terms of making sure that they have some level of assistance while they are unemployed and seeking employment. Families, persons with disabilities, and that includes, we're making consideration for parents and caretakers with children with disabilities, as well, of course, our seniors. And so we are targeting, reducing the threshold, and of course we're targeting, we want the benefit to really reach those who could benefit, and of course we want to make sure that those groups are receiving the assistance.
Mm-hmm. You made mention of a partnership with UNICEF. Are there any other bodies or organizations that are partnering with the Ministry of Social Development for this process?
Yes, so UNICEF would have been a consultant who we would have flagged originally as part of the restructuring, so they would have been able to help us and to also affirm the trends and trajectories that we would have identified, and then to also help us to come up with some operating procedures for the transition to L.I.F.T. But we've also sought out and established just stronger cooperative partnerships with the Social Security Board. And this is important for us because since, both P.A.P and L.I.F.T are based on income, it's based on income thresholds, the Social Security Board has the data in terms of, what people earn, and kind of where their need lies. So Social Security is coming on board. We're creating stronger partnerships with them to see how they can assist us with verification of the information that's submitted by applicants, and also, in light of the fact that Social Security is doing a bit more in terms of just the social protection framework. We would have heard from the last budget, Social Security recently increased the amount that they were giving in terms of pensions. Right. We know obviously seniors is a group who we've identified to be able to benefit from social assistance, but we also recognize, this would have been a finding from the P.A.P experience, that not all seniors necessarily receive an equitable amount of pension. There's some seniors who have very, very small pensions, and then there are others who have very large pensions. And so even amongst the seniors, we want to be able to target those who are most vulnerable and those who are living more indigently if they're alone and they don't have family support. Social Security is coming on board to partner with us to support us in the process of, combining the pension benefit with some amount of social assistance benefits so that we can actually support our seniors more equitably, and so we are looking forward to that, because then it will also help us to make sure that we are targeting those who really need it most, because they have the data to support us with that.
Thank you so much for that. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM, and in studio with me is the Honorable Isalean Phillip, Minister in the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs, Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities, and we are speaking on the L.I.F.T program, which will be effective April.
Yes, applications intended to be open by then. Yes.
Awesome. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay tuned.
Get ready to ignite your Tuesday nights with a show that's as educational as it is entertaining. Welcome to Pleasure Pulse, your weekly guide to the world of sex education. Join Roma every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. exclusively on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. It's the perfect way to spice up your midweek routine and get answers to all your burning questions. Whether you're looking for relationship advice or curious about the art of intimacy, Roma's got you covered. Pleasure Pulse, every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. only on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. Don't miss out. Your sex education journey starts this Tuesday with Roma as your guide.
Join us every Wednesday for In Focus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. In Focus, your government, your business.
But Jeff, you leaving already, boss? You sure you could drive after them drinks?
Yeah, I could handle it, You're not too far from here. I'm gonna take my time.
Oh my God! Jeff, you're gone! I told you not to drink and drive!
The problem with drinking and driving is the morning after. Drink responsibly.
This message was brought to you by the St. Kitts Nevis National Council on Drug Abuse Prevention in collaboration with SKNIS.
Join us every Wednesday for In Focus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. In Focus, your government, your business.
Welcome back to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm Devonne Cornelius, your host, and in studio with me today is our guest, the Honorable Isalean Phillip, Minister with responsibility for social development and gender affairs, youth empowerment, aging and disabilities, and we're currently speaking on the P.A.P program, which is, or the P.A.P, because that's Poverty Alleviation Program, which is transitioning to the L.I.F.T program. Again, thank you so much for joining me in the studio. Let's get back to the conversation. How does the L.I.F.T program, or what does the L.I.F.T program entail, and how different is it from P.A.P?
Okay, so the L.I.F.T program, the similarity is that it is a cash transfer assistance, social assistance program. Okay. So beneficiaries to L.I.F.T, like the P.A.P, will receive some monetary assistance. That's a direct cash transfer to allow them to help, with their kind of, ensuring that they have basic essentials. The big difference is in terms of the L.I.F.T, the improvements of L.I.F.T over the P.A.P, I can say in three significant ways. So the L.I.F.T program is designed, we look to offer and to put more monies into the households. And this would be in response to, like I said, what we would have found in terms of multiple families living in single households. So L.I.F.T, beneficiaries of L.I.F.T could potentially earn up to $600 in benefit depending on the need and vulnerability. And because we are now seeking to assist more families who might be residing in single households, we want to be able to give some amount of assistance to multiple family units that are living within the same unit. So that's a significant change. We're putting more money into the households and families to see how we can assist more people. The L.I.F.T significant improvement over the P.A.P is that it is being implemented systematically, established to be able to improve fairness and transparency. So this would be the solution in response to what we would have seen as part of the problem with the P.A.P, in that, that was not administered in any real systematic way without any real transparency. So we are doing that. We are making sure that there's a clear application process, that there's standard operating procedures, and that the way that it's being implemented can be established in terms of a clear best practice process. And then third significant change and significant improvement over the P.A.P is that L.I.F.T will offer empowerment opportunities. And when I say that, what I really mean is there would be some organized and coordinated self-development activities. So perhaps you might remember, as part of the restructuring during the last cycle of the P.A.P experience in 2023, we would have piloted some self-development workshops that a number of persons who were receiving the P.A.P benefit would have been able to participate in. So we would have struck partnerships with the Small Business Development Center, where some of the participants who would have expressed an interest in entrepreneurship, we were able to get them some sessions with small business development so they can kind of learn about what would be involved, what would be required for them to move into entrepreneurship if they had an idea. That would have been successful for those participants who expressed an interest in that. We would have also hosted a session with the Department of Employment and Labor for those who were unemployed, to kind of give them an idea of what is available and how to kind of prepare themselves for applying for a job, seeking out employment, give them some tips in that regard. So similarly, since we piloted those and those were successful, we are with the L.I.F.T planning to offer some more of those things in different areas. Another area we want to potentially add is, we know that through the Elevate program there is a curriculum around financial literacy. They would have been doing some train-the-trainer workshops. Some of our staff at social development and community development would have been trained in that. So that's another area that we would like to see to be able to offer as a self-development activity for beneficiaries on the L.I.F.T. So this is what these types of empowerment opportunities in terms of providing people with education and training. These are the things that are proven to actually help lift people by some means out of poverty. And so that is what L.I.F.T is designed and intended to do, and that's why it is a better program and why we're moving in that direction. Because ultimately, for us as an administration, under the leadership of the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, sustainable social protection is what we're trying to accomplish, and that is what we're really trying to do here with L.I.F.T.
Awesome. Conversations have been had about the sustainability of social assistance programs over the years. People will often ask, how do we continue to sustain these programs? With regards to L.I.F.T, how will the ministry ensure its sustainability?
That's a good question. Well, social assistance programs just in general across the board, the Ministry of Social Development through the Department of Social Services, we offer a number of different social programs. So L.I.F.T will be, a cash transfer program. We also have a food voucher program. We have a school uniform assistance program. We have medical assistance, and all of these are different types of benefits. In terms of sustainability of these programs, one of the things that we need to recognize and accept and be conscious of is, we beneficiaries of these programs ought not think of these programs as, this is something I'm going to receive indefinitely. These are assistance programs. They're intended to be social safety net programs so that nobody among us is left behind when it comes to actually engaging in the economy and actually benefiting. And so the way we are looking to make sure that, we are more sustainable is, of course, one, by systematizing the processes and making sure that we implement standard operating procedures, making sure that there are clear policies and guidelines as to who is eligible for this assistance, how long this assistance is intended to last. Case management, that's a very big aspect. We would have piloted case management last year in the last phase of the P.A.P experience. And so we want to strengthen that capacity within our department, and actually, but a big challenge that the case managers and social assistance officers would have expressed is that people are not responsive. And maybe because it's new, persons who were receiving the P.A.P, not everybody was as responsive to the case management and the efforts, the multiple calls that the case managers were trying to make to get in contact with people to kind of say, okay, how are you doing? We see this is your case file. It is now 6 months later. And so in terms of sustainability, these types of best practices, which are just naturally part of social service delivery, is what we're really trying to implement and enforce. But a big part of that will require the general public to also have an understanding and, adjust expectations in terms of how long they expect to receive a benefit from social services, and the expectation of their willingness and their role in terms of helping themselves move up and out of poverty. And that is why, we're trying to provide empowerment opportunities through the L.I.F.T to see, how we can kind of direct people to different types of services, different types of support that will allow them to reduce their dependence on the state and become a lot more self-autonomous.
As we're on the topic of sustainability, let's talk about the application and the information that would be required for people to be on this program.
Sure. So the application process is actually very much similarly the same from what we would have originally instituted it would have been 2022.
Yes.
For the registration process for the last cycle of the P.A.P experience, and so the applications will be online. And I know we would have gotten a little bit of, complaints around some persons are not necessarily as technically savvy, but that is actually part of the sustainability piece for our programming, digitization. So I'm sorry to break it to folks, but we're not going back to paper.
Okay.
We're moving forward. And so the application will be available online. In terms of the information that you're expected to provide, it would be similar to what you were asked when we had put the P.A.P application online and asked persons to reapply. So you would have needed your social security number or some government issued ID, preferably social security. For those who don't have social security, we would have tried to facilitate. You're expected to provide a proof of address, bill, payslip. And so these are things that will remain in terms of the application. Of course, we are asking persons to, of course, include their dependents. That is, if you have any children, that will be part of the application. And just from if you would recall, we would have had the back to school voucher initiative that was done for independence last year.
Right.
That was also similarly done on an online application platform. And so we're really hoping that persons, with, these different types of approaches, in terms of using the technology, would be a bit more comfortable in terms of applying and providing the information. And so we are digitizing, and that's part of the sustainability piece. And so persons can expect, what you would have provided for your original, during the P.A.P is the same type of information that we would be asking for L.I.F.T. So we're just asking the public to be cooperative in that process.
What about the seniors? Because some will tell you straight up.
That's right.
They're not tech savvy at all.
Good question, Devonne. Thank you for that. So, of course, in light of that, we recognize, that it would be more challenging because the digital divide is real between the different generations. And so, as a matter of fact, you would recall that I would have mentioned the ministry we've established a closer cooperative partnership with the Social Security Board. And we've actually been in conversation with them to see how we can, for the seniors who are currently receiving the P.A.P benefit, see how we can just easily transition them over to L.I.F.T without them having to go through the reapplication or re-verification process that we're expecting everyone else to go through. Just recognizing that. So with Social Security, we hope to make that process a little bit more seamless to see how we can not necessarily have to get our seniors to go through the whole online application process. But even outside of that, the Department of Social Services, we have satellite offices in the community centers, and that is where we would encourage persons, whether you're a senior or not, to go to be able to get some assistance. Especially everybody, I think, we actually have devices.
Yes.
But maybe not everybody uses them as, efficiently, effectively as others. But we'd encourage you to go with your device and get some assistance from the social assistance offices at the community centers, at the satellite offices, for them to actually help walk you through, which is one thing that we would have done with the application process in 2022.
Thank you so much for that. It is 11:34 here in the studios of ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM, and you are listening to The Edge. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, for Monday, February 19, 2024. In studio with me is the Honorable Isalean Phillip. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the program. You are listening to The Edge. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, and again in studio with me is the Honorable Isalean Phillip. We are speaking on the L.I.F.T program, the poverty alleviation program, which is transitioning to L.I.F.T. Minister Phillip is the minister with responsibility for those programs, and she has been providing the details in terms of what the L.I.F.T program would entail, and now we'll be touching on the time frame and when people can expect the application to open. So what is the time frame for the restructuring process, and when will application open?
Right. So in terms of time frame for the restructuring process, restructuring is ongoing.
Okay.
So one of the things when it comes to social policy and programming development is, well, I like to approach it in terms of within an adaptive change management style, which means, we would have had, restructuring really started since, the SK&LP took administration.
Okay.
We would have started with that, and over the past year, we would have identified areas of weakness. We would have tried to make changes. We've tried to pilot some approaches, and now we're here at L.I.F.T where we're making the most significant changes. But I think restructuring is intended to be ongoing because we're making significant changes. We hope for the best, but of course we will figure out what the issues and challenges may be as we go on. But in another year's time, we may recognize we need to make some additional changes to refine the program. Also, of course, with the objective of sustainability. That is our bottom line. Sustainable social protection is what we're trying to accomplish and achieve. So restructuring is ongoing, but right now we are, from the ministry standpoint, at a point where we're preparing to actually implement the initial changes with L.I.F.T in terms of the improvements, but we'll give it some time. I think we have to give it some time to see how it unfolds, how it works, but I am certainly open and very willing to say, okay, if this is not working, what are the challenges? How do we respond to improving that? So to answer your question, restructuring is ongoing because I like to approach policy and programming, especially for social policy, with an adaptive change management style. So we adapt to the challenges and we change as we need to based on the needs of people and the society.
And the applications?
Right. So for where we're at in terms of our readiness to implement L.I.F.T with the initial changes, we are working towards reopening applications by the 1st of April. But prior to that, in March, we want to, of course, make the transition as smooth as possible for those who are currently receiving P.A.P benefits, for them to transition over to L.I.F.T.
Okay.
So, there needs to be necessarily no hysteria. We don't want people to kind of feel like, all of a sudden it's just going to be automatically cut. But there will be a time where we invite persons who are currently on the P.A.P and are receiving benefits on the P.A.P to re-verify their original application information, because as you would have heard, there are some eligibility criteria changes. So we don't anticipate necessarily everybody will necessarily benefit in the same way, but we will invite persons, especially if you're interested in receiving benefits on L.I.F.T, to re-verify your information so that we can consider your application in the initial instance for continuation. And so we plan to hopefully kind of open that original portal for persons who are currently receiving at some point in March, before we open for anybody who has never received by April. So that's the idea.
So the onus is basically on the applicant to verify, update their information.
Right. And this update is actually necessary because we want to know, well, has your situation changed?
Right.
We would have had persons who were on the P.A.P who maybe were unemployed, maybe they have a job now. Maybe you have more children now. Maybe your address has changed, So this is an opportunity for you to re-verify your original application information for us to be able to have the most up-to-date information to consider your eligibility for receiving some level of assistance on L.I.F.T. Because the intention is for benefits to vary in amount. You can receive up to $600, but it's dependent on need and vulnerability. There are some families may need more based on their situation and circumstance, and some families could be able to receive less, especially in light of the recent increase in minimum wage. These are all things that we take into consideration in terms of the level of cash transfer assistance that we want to offer to persons to help them.
Is it different for applicants or prospective applicants who are on NEVIS?
So I'm glad you asked that question. So in terms of the programmatic approach, it is not different. This cash transfer program, so the P.A.P and the L.I.F.T, which would be the evolution, will continue to be the only federal social assistance program that's offered to both conditions and divisions.
Okay.
We have had conversations. We have been in communication with social services in NEVIS, who is actually responsible for administering to NEVIS beneficiaries. But the approach essentially is the same. However, we are cognizant on our side that the personnel and staff resources are less in NEVIS in terms of being the staff to provide the level of case management support and those kinds of things. We are cognizant of that, but in terms of the criteria and the application, because it's an online application, it will be open for persons in NEVIS to apply. We'd apply the same eligibility criteria, the same thresholds apply. So persons in NEVIS, it's the same. Okay. We won't necessarily discriminate against the seniors who are NEVIS or St. Kitts. So it's the same approach across the board, but we do recognize that NEVIS does have its own social assistance programs that it runs in parallel to what L.I.F.T and P.A.P. What P.A.P was and what L.I.F.T will be. Okay. And so we just continue to see how we can have a stronger collaboration and partnership and cooperation with the department at NEVIS. But shout out to them at NEVIS. We've had meetings with them, and so we've been restructuring.
Awesome. Thank you, Minister Phillip. We'll open the phone lines now, and we'll be taking some calls to allow people to ask questions. The phone lines are open, and you can call us at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916, which is our overseas line. We'll take our first call for this morning. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Devon.
Welcome.
Yeah, and good morning to the lady there, Miss Phillip.
Hi, morning.
Now, I have a question or two.
Sure.
I don't want to believe anything that I heard you said. Okay, because Dr. Joe promised that the $500 for P.A.P was not enough. Mm-hmm. And when he get in there, he's going to give $1,500. Well, that never come to fruition. That's number one wrong. That's number one lie. And when somebody tell me a lie in the morning for breakfast, they can't catch me for lunch and dinner. And the next thing again, if you have a basket of apple and you find 1 to 3 in there, that basket bad, you take out the bad ones from the good ones, throw them away, and you save the good ones. Now that's saying, that means to say, if people who were getting the P.A.P, they were getting it without an application chip, well, you remove them from the P.A.P because they were getting it because of want. But those who are in need and were getting it, they should have been on the P.A.P still. But instead of that, Dr. Joe and the government went in there with political eyes, and they remove everything, they ramp up everything, and so therefore, who needed it ain't getting it, and who never needed it was still getting it, all because they were looking at it with political eyes. Thank you very much.
All right, caller, thank you for your contribution. We'll take one more call and allow you to respond to the question. Let's take this call. Hello, caller, you are on the air. Good morning.
Yes, I'm just calling for some clarification. Did the minister say that they're reducing the threshold from 3,000 to 2,500 per family, per household? Was that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So how would that put more people on it?
So that actually targets the families who are in need more. So which is what we're trying to accomplish. So we're trying to target families who are more vulnerable as opposed to keeping it as high. So that is the reason for reducing the threshold, because we're trying to streamline the benefit to target those who are most vulnerable.
But you realize, of course, that reducing it to 3,500 reduces the number of persons who are going to be on the P.A.P.
No, it doesn't necessarily.
No?
No, it doesn't. It actually allows us to find out who is actually earning less. And for us to be able to make sure that we target more of those people as opposed to giving it to persons who don't necessarily have as much of a vulnerability. So we want to be able to give to persons who are more in need as opposed to those who have less of a vulnerability.
So if somebody, for instance, would be making, let's say, 2,900
That's right.
they would be off of the PAP.
That is correct, because there might be people who are earning, less than $2,000 who might miss out because that person is earning an extra $500, therefore putting them up to $3,400 per month, while you have somebody who is still earning maybe potentially less than minimum wage.
But when the person who was earning $2,500, wouldn't they have been on the PAP anyway?
Well, you see, so we only have a limited number of resources.
Oh, so it's according to, okay, I see what you're saying. So basically...
Hold on, caller.
So for us to make sure that we can target those people, we have to make sure we streamline in terms of the criteria and the threshold.
All right, we want to take some more calls. Thank you so much for your contribution. You have a caller? Let's take this call. Hello, caller, you're on.
Yes, hello. Devonne, blessed good morning. The first caller, right? He talk about the $1,500 whatever dollars, right? But that only was for election. That people could win. But a lot of people here bawling and saying that they ain't getting the look after. And they say that is a problem there. Cause all the government them.
All right, caller, thank you. Minister Phillip, in response to the first caller.
Sure. Sure. So I realized it wasn't really a question, but a lament. What I would say in response to that is, the SKNLP during the campaign would have expressed, the intention to restructure the PAP and apply the MEND approach, which would have been a social policy program approach that was piloted in 2013-2014. And they did say, in terms of the 1,500, wanting to increase the benefit to 1,500 per household. With L.I.F.T, that is still kept in mind. So like you would have said, we're actually increasing the individual benefit. The individual benefit is being increased where persons, depending on your vulnerability, will be able to receive potentially up to $600 for their family. Okay. And because we would have relaxed the $500 per household benefit, we are technically putting more money into the household. So for instance, like I said, back to my example, right. You and I, brother and sister, we're siblings, we're living with our senior mother. Because it's no longer just $500 per household. Potentially, our senior mother can continue to receive $500. Okay. You might be able to receive, say, $350. I might be able to also receive an additional $350 or the same $500. And so, when you calculate that in terms of the household, you actually you could get up to $1,500 if everybody is able to receive some level of assistance. And so, it's not that, we're not responding to the campaign, that we're not holding true to that, but it's just the approach. We have to be strategic in the way we manage the resources, again, for sustainable social protection. Right. So there just needs to be a little bit of openness and understanding, I think, from the public to recognize what we're really trying to accomplish here. We are trying to improve people's lives. We are trying to do that. But of course, we do have to manage the resources. And so I would, want to reject that it was a lie. It's not a lie. That is actually what we're trying to accomplish, but we just have to go about it a different way.
Thank you so much for that. Let's head back to the phone lines and we'll take some more calls. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I would like to ask a question.
Sure.
The question is that, what about the disability people? They have to be signed up also?
Yes, so they will be part of the re-verification process. So if you're a person with a disability, similarly as others who are if you're currently receiving benefit, you also have the opportunity to re-verify. But you would have heard that persons with disabilities, as well as parents or caretakers of children with disabilities, are a vulnerable group that we want to kind of make sure we give consideration in terms of priority for receiving L.I.F.T assistance.
Yes, and then where you go to sign up?
The applications will be available online. We will be, like we would have done with the registration process during the last phase of the PAP experience, our satellite offices and offices there would be available to assist persons with the online application.
Oh, so you can go back to the same office that you went to?
Yes, you should be able to do that, which are satellite offices for social services, yes.
Yes, and how it go about just one person in the house who is working, and I'm a disability, and that if you can sign up for it also.
Yes, so the application is, we're doing it, it's a per family benefit, so
Yes.
you should be able to submit that application if you have multiple persons, which we would have found during the last phase of the PAP experience. We still open the applications in that way for consideration. Yes.
Okay, because I'm hearing that it's not surety you're going to get it, so I just asking questions.
That's fine. Yes, there's never a guarantee. There's never a guarantee. I'm not here to offer guarantees, but I am here to try to reassure the public that we're not ending cash transfer assistance. We are just transitioning to L.I.F.T, and we're doing so in a way where we actually hope to help support more families with some level of assistance, so that we can, seek to support more people.
All right, caller, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
All right, do we have any more callers on the line? It is 11:50, about 10 minutes left before we end the conversation. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, and in studio with me is the Honorable Isalean Phillip, and she has been providing a lot of very useful information on the transition process for the PAP to the L.I.F.T program. The phone lines remain open, and we take your calls at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. In the meantime, Minister Phillip, do you have anything else that you'd like to share on this transition process?
Well, I think for us, in the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs, this is a big shift for us. As you should know, the PAP program, the PAP was originally with the Ministry of Sustainable Development.
Yes.
Which should never really made sense to any of us because it is a social assistance program. And so when it was transitioned over to the Ministry of Social Development, it was actually very challenging for us from an administrative level, just because the PAP really had no system process. Wow. It was really kind of, we literally just got boxes of files, which would have been, I guess, original applications that paper, which were not complete in some instances. We didn't have all the information, and so we really had to go through kind of engineering a new process to bring it in line with the best practices we apply to our other social assistance programs. And so that's one thing that I would like to kind of highlight and iterate, is that the social services provides a number of social assistance programs, and every single one of those programs requires an application and an evaluation. So what we're doing with the changes and the restructuring that we would have started with the PAP and our transition to L.I.F.T is not unlike anything that we would be doing for any of our other social assistance programs. It's actually falling in line. It's actually bringing it in line with how we administer social assistance across the board. In terms of an application, we ask, to be able to give you some level of vulnerability testing, but because of the number of people, the thousands of people who would have been receiving the PAP in the initial, it was a mammoth of a task for us as a ministry and our small social services department. But I must commend the staff and the management in the Ministry of Social Development, because we really have been able to restructure the program, and now we're at a point where we are able and ready to kind of start the implementation of a new and improved version of cash transfer assistance. And so I want to appeal to the public to be a little bit patient and, to really trust that we are actually trying to improve our social protection framework and provide support, some level of support to persons who need it. We're not trying to take anything away from anybody. We're actually trying to see how we can help more people. But there needs to be a level of understanding that, everybody can't be helped at the same time. And so appeal to the public, especially persons who are interested in applying for L.I.F.T or continuing on, in that, the expectation can't be that you're receiving it forever. That's just not how social assistance programs work anywhere in the world, ever. And so we just want to really kind of try to appeal to people. It's not that we're not trying to help you, but everybody just can't benefit at the same time. And so we are really trying to see how we can support as many persons as possible by doing it in a fairer way and a more equitable way. And, equity for you won't look the same for me. So just asking persons to be considerate of others in the society and in the community as well.
For people who may want to find out more about this program, is there a website, contact information? Where can you go?
Unfortunately, I don't have anywhere specific that you can go at this time. We are obviously in the process of developing our communications specific to L.I.F.T. Within the ministry, we've actually we have to subcontract some PR and communication support, but we're able to speak to the elements of the program because programmatically, in terms of for implementation, the ministry is near ready to be able to make that transition. We expect there to be, issues and challenges, but we know communications is something that the public can look forward to seeing in the near future, to be able for those questions to be answered. We are internally preparing just ourselves and our staff just in terms of what operating procedures are supposed to look like, what the general policies are supposed to be, so that it is standard across the board. So the comment that the gentleman, the first caller, would have made about it all being political, we are actually, that's what P.A.P was. P.A.P was problems after problems because of the political yes, it was problems after problems, especially for us administratively, because it was kind of really dealt with and managed with a kind of political objective. But with L.I.F.T, we're really looking to systematize it so that it becomes more transparent and more fair, which is why we've taken the time to monitor, to evaluate, to receive technical assistance from consultants provided by UNICEF, so that we can establish a more sustainable social assistance cash transfer program, and that is what L.I.F.T is. So we're looking forward to seeing how that unfolds for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Minister Phillip. Just a few minutes left. Let me use this opportunity to say thank you so much for joining me in the program for today to provide the facts on the transition process from P.A.P to L.I.F.T.
Thank you.
Until next time, stay safe and you have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for joining me on The Edge for today, Monday, February 19, 2024. Take care. Remember, don't drink and drive, don't text and drive. See you tomorrow, same time, same station. Have a good one.